Welcome back to the Lander State of Mind podcast, the place where we explore policy, leadership, and the voices shaping the future of Lander and beyond. I'm your host, Ethan ATX, and today I'm flying solo, but for good reason. This episode is going to be a little bit different, more personal, because today I want to talk to you not just as a commentator or observer, but as a candidate. I want to talk to you through a bill I'd like to propose as soon as I get elected into the Senate in the upcoming election. I will be going through section by section and explain what it's really about. This isn't about political buzzwords. It's about the real problems I've identified in the system and what I'm willing to do to fix them. Now, one of the reasons I even started this podcast was because I realized something was missing in the way we talk about politics, especially here in Lander. We don't always give enough room for candidates, outsider voices, or new perspectives. This platform was meant to amplify voices, and that includes mine. Not everybody has the media covering them. Not every platform is available to every candidate, so this is me using my platform. But first, let's clear some things. What is the Common Good Act? More importantly, what's inside of it? Why does it matter? All of that will become clear as we go on. But even before the beginning, let's clarify something technical. This bill is what's called an Omnibus Bill. Per Cambridge, an Omnibus Bill is a bill that includes several different things that will be voted on as one. Applied, it's a collection of reforms tied together to push this government and this community towards the common good. Now let's break it down. To introduce this Omnibus Bill, the thought process for this was to create an initiative to combat government stagnation, ensure fair labor standards, and empower business in the state of Mayflower. The first section is integral to the state of Mayflower and its operations and sets the tone for the rest of this bill. The first section, which I'll put on screen now. Section 1. Governmental Agency Performance and Transparency Bill. Section 1, Subsection 1. Performance Benchmarks and Reporting. These benchmarks and reports are essential to gauge and combat institutional stagnation, allowing for clear oversight and transparency that will ultimately have state agencies and departments operating at their best and make sure taxpayer dollars are being used in the best way possible. That said, I propose all state and governmental agencies to adopt and publish quarterly performance reports to be compiled and reviewed by the existing Department of Government Efficiency, and these reports done by DOGE are to be shared with the Governor's Office and the to be proposed Office of Administrative Accountability. On to Section 1, Subsection 2, Mandatory Productivity and Fiscal Audits. Each state and governmental agency is to undergo a bi-quarterly audit to measure financial health, resource efficiency, and internal productivity. Section 1, Subsection 3, Creation of the State Office of Administrative Accountability. A necessary decision to make sure the Office of Administrative Accountability is making it a nonpartisan oversight agency to effectively carry out the following tasks of reviewing audit results and agency performance results, holding public hearings on agency effectiveness, propose reforms to the Senate and/or Governor, and further, I believe it's crucial to implement clear whistleblowing protections as established in Section 1, Subsection 4. This section states that any state employee reporting corruption, fraud, abuse, or inefficiency in good faith will be granted full protection against retaliation by means of confidentiality, immunity, or the right to appeal disciplinary action linked to whistleblowing. I think it is mind-blowing that a clear system for this has not yet been implemented. It almost seems intentional, but regardless, this bill protects those people who report the aforementioned wrongdoing. If you were to report wrongdoing, you cannot be legally punished for it. If you're fired for whistleblowing, an investigation by a third party must be done. No one should lose their job for telling the truth. Section 1, Subsection 5, Corrective Action. Agencies failing to meet 2 consecutive semi-quarterly benchmark/audit standards are subject to a Corrective Action Plan, or CAP. Corrective Action Plans are to be put together by the Office of Administrative Accountability and executed by the OAA. CAPs must include a thorough review including an issue identification, reform steps, timeline, and personnel accountability. A question you may ask is why a new agency, the Office of Administrative Accountability, needed instead of using an existing auditor or a legislative body? I counter that with saying that we've all seen situations where projects drag on, money disappears into black holes, or people are collecting paychecks without doing anything. These audits help catch that and give honest workers the credit they deserve. I modeled the OAA after the Inspector Generals of the U.S. The goal is simple: oversight without bias, ensuring the system serves the people, not politics. If we cannot measure our government's performance, how do we improve it? That's why I wrote this section. Now, Section 2, Mayflower Labor Standards Bill. To clarify, a question you may have is, do these labor standards apply to both private businesses or state entities, or both? It applies to both, but these are more classifications as of now rather than proper standards, and I'm tailored this section to be more towards state employees, but as time goes on, I will, and if I get put into office, I will write more stuff for the private sector, private employees. Continuing. Classifications of work and employment are as follows: self-employment, independent contractor, full-time employee or FTE, full-time employee, intern or apprentice, volunteer, then finally temporary/seasonal worker. But why am I spelling this out? Well, because when roles aren't clearly defined, it's easy to dodge accountability or to overwork and underpay people without legal pushback. Now, the definitions are as follows: self-employment or independent contractor. CGA 2.1 definitions. A self-employed person is one who earns income directly from their own business, trade, or freelance work, whereas an independent contractor is a person or entity contracted to perform work or services for another entity as a non-employee. 2.2, full-time employee or FTE. The definition for this one is an FTE or full-time employee works regular defined hours, which will be defined or are to be defined, per week, often salaried or paid hourly. 2.3, part-time employee or PTE. A part-time employee or PTE works few defined hours, to be defined, per week, often paid hourly or on a by-shift basis. 2.4, internships or apprenticeship. Definition 1. An internship program is typically a short-term event and without a structured training plan or pay, meant to expose participant or participants to the environment of the job, with the expectation of employment after. Definition 2. An apprenticeship program. An apprenticeship program defined are longer-term paid programs that combine on-the-job training with classroom instruction, leading to a recognized qualification and often a career path. Definition 3. An intern is a member or participant of an internship program. Definition 4. Apprentices are members or participants of an apprenticeship program. Moving on. 2.6. Temporary or seasonal worker. Definition 1. The terms temporary and seasonal workers are interchangeable. They are workers that are hired for short durations and or specific events. Temporary workers may be full-time or part-time employees, but are not entitled to the same benefits of such positions. Now on to Section 3, the Land Clarity and Reformation Bill. This is a bill to establish formal land zones in the state of Mayflower, bringing order, transparency, and fairness to property development, housing access, and commercial growth. Land zoning classifications. The following definitions are that of residential. These consist of homes, rentals, apartments. These are areas designated for housing and living quarters. Commercial. This would include shops, vendors, marketplaces. This would be land for businesses such as retail shops, restaurants, offices, banks, and service providers. Next, industrial. This would include areas like factories, production areas, logistics hubs, and so on. These are zones for manufacturing, processing, warehousing, shipping, energy production, and logistical infrastructure. Then we also have mixed use. These are urban blocks that combine shops and apartments. Maybe you've seen like a gas station in your neighborhood or something like that. That's where you would see this mixed use zoning in place. This would combine residential and commercial uses in an urban or suburban setting, as I just explained. Now, civic and public use, or public zoning, would be like government buildings, schools, and parks. These are government-owned or publicly accessible land that includes schools, parks, municipal buildings, libraries, and hospitals. Moving on, agriculture. Agricultural land is land reserved for farming, ranching, and food production. This may include conservation easements and rural protections. Now, environmentally protected land. This is land designated for the conservation of parks, forests, wetlands, or wildlife sanctuaries. Development is heavily restricted to preserve the ecosystem. Now, the land use division creation. This introduces the idea of a subdivision responsible for maintaining zoning records, publishing maps, coordinating zoning changes, and issuing land use guidance. I'd like to have this under the Department of State. Next would be the Zoning Review Board. This would be a board that reviews zoning changes or variance applications. They should host public input hearings and enforcing uniform zoning code adherence across multiple municipalities. Section 3, subsection 4, rezoning and appeal process. Property owners or community members may request rezoning through formal petitions. Appeals on zoning decisions must be reviewed by the aforementioned Zoning Review Board and, if necessary, escalated to the Governor's Office. Next subsection 5 of Section 3, Local Coordination Clause. Municipalities may enforce more specific zoning overlays, but may not override base state classifications, as proposed above. State zoning serves as a minimum regulatory standard. Another question you may have about all of this is, what level of enforcement does the zoning board actually have? Well, for instance, if someone was to put a gun store next to a daycare, that's the kind of thing this zoning plan prevents, and the power the board possesses. Now, my thought process behind this is that Section 3, while mostly for LARP and to leave room for a lot of developments and such, the main thing for this being brought across the table is for controlled housing areas where people could file for governmental housing of sorts. That's a conversation for another day, and I still have to think about how that would be implemented so I can properly propose this idea. But it is something that I've seen my constituents or my eventual constituents would really like. Section 4, employee benefits. So that all employees in Mayflower, regardless of classification, have access to fair, consistent, and humane benefits that uphold the dignity of work and promote economic stability. This section is mostly tailored to state employees. I will eventually cover more stuff for private employees, as I've touched on before, but let's go ahead and get into it. I have not defined paid time off yet because I'm still thinking on a way to propose this. I just know that I would like to explore this idea. Continuing. Section 4, subsection 2, retirement contribution. Employers must offer a state-backed retirement account or third-party plan and match contributions up to 5% of gross salary for full-time employees. This is essentially just a 401k system. Section 4, subsection 3, wage reporting. All compensation structures, salary, hourly, or commission, must be disclosed in writing to employees upon hire. Right to disconnect. This is for FTEs only. Employees shall not be required to respond to work communications outside of their scheduled work hours unless in emergency designated fields. Subsection 5, workplace safety and harassment protection. I would like to propose with this subsection 5 mandatory bi-quarterly training. This would mean that employers with 10 plus employees must conduct bi-quarterly training on workplace harassment, employee rights, and health and safety standards. This goes for state employees too. I'm not sure if that was clear. Continuing, the whistleblower expansion clause. Protections established in section 1.4 apply fully to workplace harassment and OSHA-style violations reported in good faith. Subsection 6, enforcement and compliance. The Office of Administrative Accountability is empowered to conduct random compliance audits, mediate benefit-related employee complaints, and to issue compliance orders and fines as necessary. I'd also like to recognize unions and give formal channels for complaint when I get into office. But here's the catch. Employees can't abuse the system either. That's what the audits from Section 1 matter. You want the perks? Show up, do the job. That's the deal. Continuing, Mayflower Public Retirement Account System, or PRAs, to provide secure, state-backed retirement savings options for workers and to offer new investment opportunities for state growth, possibly through the issuance of bonds and strategic financial instruments. Section 4, subsection 7.1, establishment of PRAs accounts. All full-time employees or FTEs and qualifying part-time employees shall have the option to enroll in the Mayflower Public Retirement Account. Accounts shall be voluntary, individually held, and managed by the Mayflower Retirement Board under the Department of Labor and Treasury. I'm not sure if we have those departments yet, but I would like to propose that those be added. If not, subsection 7.2, state contribution and employer matching. The state of Mayflower shall contribute 1% of eligible wages into each active PRAs monthly, subject to budget availability. Employers with more than five employees shall match employee contributions up to 5% of gross annual pay. Subsection 7.3, investment strategy. The PRA's fund may invest in a combination of state-issued Mayflower growth bonds, public infrastructure projects, and select private sector opportunities vetted by the Mayflower Investment Ethics Panel. Investment decisions will prioritize long-term growth, ethical standards, and risk mitigation. Now, another department I would like to propose is the Mayflower Investment Ethics Panel, but I will write that out and put a formal proposal eventually. Section 4, subsection 7.4, optional private management window. Qualified and licensed institutions such as Mayflower-based investment banks may apply with the Department of State to become authorized PRAs, portfolio partners, managing portfolios within a state-set ethical and financial guidelines. Subsection 7.5, oversight and reporting. All PRA operations are subject to independent audit. A Public Retirement Oversight Council, or PROC, shall provide quarterly public reports on fund performance, portfolio breakdowns, and bi-quarterly individual statements. Subsection 7.6, withdrawals and vesting. Funds shall be vested after 1 month of consistent contributions. Withdrawals before retirement incur a minimal penalty. And finally, Section 5, implementation and oversight clause. To ensure swift, fair, and accountable enactment of the provisions within the Common Good Act. Section 5, subsection 1, enactment timeline. All provisions of the Common Good Act shall take effect 30 days from the date of approval, unless otherwise specified. Section 5, subsection 2, Oversight and Review Commission. The Common Good Commission, or CGC, shall be established under the Office of Administrative Accountability to monitor and report on implementation across all sections. The Common Good Commission shall include 3 senators, 1 appointed by each major political bloc, 2 civilian experts nominated by the governor, and 1 independent auditor. Section 5, subsection 3, sunset and amendment. Sections of this act may be amended by a simple majority vote of the Senate, provided the changes do not nullify the act's stated purpose. Any section failing to be implemented within 30 days of its effective date shall be subject to mandatory review by the CGC. Now, what we just went over is subject to change as I refine it over time. This is the first version I released on the 22nd day of July, and upon getting into office, I will work very hard to refine this and get this in as best shape as I can to propose and get this stuff rolling. This will be the first act I roll out as a senator. Now, to wrap up and summarize what we just spoke about, the Common Good Act creates structure, it rewards honesty, it punishes waste, and most of all, it tells my constituents, I see you, and I will hold everyone, including leadership, to a higher standard. Take a read, share it, critique it. I wholeheartedly welcome that. Let's start the conversation, not wait for someone else to. You can find the full text of the Common Good Act on my campaign Discord server linked in today's show description. Also, I will be attaching the LSM server with it. Thank you for tuning in to Lander State of Mind, where your voice matters and your mind is always welcome. Until next time, stay informed, stay committed to the common good, and stay in the Lander state of mind.